Smilingfaces21 here with greetings of love, hope, and faith with our usual topic of why suicide, why not, and life. We've got a guest here today we're going to chat about stress and its management. Are you stressed? Are you going through stress with everything happening, COVID-19 and the wars and rumors of war and different things happening in today's life? We've got Dr. Toyin Adewunmi, a specialist and a professional that will be discussing the meaning of stress, the importance of not getting yourself all stressed up. And during my chat we had recently, I got to understand that there is a limit of good stress and maybe the one that is not good. So I hand it over to Dr. Toyin to introduce herself and chat with us. Dr. Toyin, you're welcome to this platform. And thanks for presenting on Smiling Faces 21.
Good morning, Lady Shola. Thank you for having me on this podcast, this edition of your podcast. It's actually a privilege to be part of the good work that you are doing through Smiling Faces 21.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. When I got to know about what you're doing, I think it's an incredible thing that you're doing. And I just hope that you are strengthened through it and you're able to reach as many people as possible, because mental health issue is a problem in our society today. But before we go into that, as rightly introduced, my name is Dr. Toyin Adewunmi, and I've been an organizational health and wellbeing specialist for the past 20 years. I've worked with several organizations like the NHS, emergency services, councils, and several others, providing advice to them about how to manage the health and well-being of their workforce. And one of the prevailing issues that I've dealt with in the course of my work is mental health issues. So let's talk about it. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. That is important in terms of our mental health well-being. So, Dr. Adewunmi, can you explain to our listeners what is stress? Why do people easily go through stress?
Stress is an important part of our day-to-day life, and it's our body's response to pressure. As you know, studies have shown that there's good stress and there's bad stress. Good stress is actually important in our day-to-day lives because they help us to achieve good things in life. They help us to achieve our plans and our purpose in life. They push us through challenging situations, like maybe planning and preparing for an exam, running a marathon. So it can be useful in that way. But when it becomes a problem whereby it's impacting on you as a person, it's impacting on your mental well-being, and it is protracted, then it's an issue.
Yes, if I can just chip in a little, I'm sure the listeners will be wondering and just pondering in their minds that good stress, can any stress be good? But my understanding of what you've just explained is that in life, as human beings, we need triggers, we need things to push us forward. So that is what I understand by good stress, so that we can move, we can keep moving, we can achieve our goals and our plans, and we can just push yourself a little bit forward, and as long as we're able to do that, and achieve that, whether through when we're in education, maybe school, college, higher education, or even workplace scenario, that we're able to push yourself to achieve the goals that we've set without it being a problem or becoming all tangled up or too much, then it is good stress. Is that right, doctor?
Yes, that is correct. We all need a little bit of pressure to help push us through the deadlines, the goals, the ambitions, to help us push us to the finishing line. Without that good stress, it will be difficult to actually achieve it. So,
that,
and
that, that is interesting, isn't it? So good stress is good for you. So how
it
about
is,
bad stress, doctor? What will you say
well,
about what bad stress?
Stress, because it's like on a continuum. You're on that continuum, on the stress continuum, and you're on the side of the good stress. But you need to be able to recognize when you start, getting to the boundary and moving to the uh, next level of stress. Which is what actually the hormones that is now released to help you achieve your goals is becoming an issue. Maybe you're under constant pressure that is not relenting at all. Then the persistence of that hormone puts you in a situation that is called the fight or flight response, which actually activates our immune system. And this fight or flight response um, uh, helps us to respond quickly to dangerous situations. That means you are on edge to deal with whatever situation. So your brain is telling you that something is happening. You need to get ready to either fight or to fly from that situation.
So,
So when
yeah.
bad stress then means that if you're in constant, awareness, that heightened mode for a prolonged period of time, it becomes a big issue. It becomes a bad stress. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. I do. I believe our listeners are really, in tune with this and, understand as well. But my next question will be, how do we know when to fight and when not to fight? When to, because you talked about fight and flight, which is important because in this life we have to fight to win, so many times, just depending on how, we do the fighting. So
Yeah.
when do we know when to do the fighting or to do the flight, which is
It actually depends on the situation. For instance, everyone deal with stress, differently. And different situations actually calls for different measures. If you see that there's a lion, coming towards you, obviously you know that in fact your body the is actually telling you, and that
you
stress
fly.
response, yeah, is there. You know that this is a flight situation. There's no choice. But at times, if maybe somebody is trying to take your bag, in the market or something like that, steal your bag off you, are you just going to release it to the person?
Of
There's going
course
to be
not.
a little
A
bit of
fight, a struggle.
tussle there.
Yeah.
So that is the fight situation. So every circumstance actually determines what actually happens there. But when stress becomes an issue, that is when, because immediately after the threat has, been taken away, then we go back to our original state, our normal state, and the hormones gradually settles.
Yes,
However,
normalize.
yeah, yeah. With bad stress, that goes on perpetually, even in the absence of threats. That is the difference between the good stress and the bad stress. Even in the absence of threats, people are there, constantly stressed. Or maybe those stress are prolonged, the stressors,
Yes.
they are called, the stimuli that
Yes.
is causing the stress, then is prolonged for a period of time, then it puts you in a constant um, place of awareness, or heightened um, awareness.
Yes. Oh, thanks a lot, Dr. Adewunmi, for that explanation. I believe that we are all very conversant with this now. When to fight and when to fly. Even from the example, I really love that example because when if a lion is coming, nobody will tell you before you pick. You just run. So I really love that analogy. So, in at least we'll be able to relate that to when stress tends to happen and what to do. And we should remember as well that in those such situations that we can all also speak out and discuss things with our loved ones. You know, D- Dr. Dewumi, what will you say? What will you advise our listeners in terms of how to manage maybe those that are actually at the moment going through prolonged stress, like we've just heard? How will you advise in terms of managing the stress they are in now? Or pointers to avoid
Pointers
stressful
to
situation, to avoid stress and stressful situations.
Thank you for that question. I would have, really loved to be able to say that there are ways that we can avoid stressful situations. We live in the world, and the challenges in the world is mounting, constantly. Maybe 20 years ago, things might not have been as intense as they are today. So it's difficult to say that we're going to, wrap ourselves in cotton wool so that we're not going to encounter stress. Stress is part and parcel of our day-to-day living. So what we need to do is to actually learn ways of identifying negative stressors depending on what situations we are in, or what age range we're in. Maybe you're a youth, and you go to you're in university and things like that. You need to know that there are certain stressors that are peculiar to that, uh, stage where you're in. And for if you're a married person, or you are a married man, you're a working class, you're in a working class group, and you go to work on a daily basis, there are peculiar stressors, that you're going to be facing there as well. But one of the important things is to know yourself, to be able to also recognize when there is a stress problem, and know what to do about it. Think about where you can make changes, because at times there are things that are in your control that you can change. For instance, for a student who is preparing for an exam, you have a lot in your plate. You've got maybe 4 exams to prepare for concurrently, and you've got other issues going on the side. Maybe your parents are having issues and all of that. So you need to focus on the things that you can control. Your exam, you know that you've got to study for it well ahead of time to be able to achieve good grades. And if you're finding it difficult to actually study well, you can get help ahead of time So those are the things in your control that you can deal with ahead of time before it becomes a stressful situation. You can also build on your relationships, have somebody that you can talk to that can help you in that circumstance. But in terms of the relationship with your parents that is about to end or that is causing you aggravation, you know that that is in some way out of your control. You need to, manage those situations in that way. I'm not sure whether that answered your question.
Yes, yes, it does. That is part of it, part of the good example for our young people that you're going through different coursework, exams, or class work that, it's good to read ahead, to plan ahead, and peradventure that maybe due to one thing or the other that you couldn't, remember that there are always people in school, I mean, that you can liaise with, that you can talk with. When I mean people, I mean um, your course lead or your form tutor, or instead of making everything all intertwined and too deep and becoming now a difficult situation. That is why, so that is why we need to talk when we are going through situations, so that everything won't become a bad stress like we've heard
Yeah.
on the platform. So
So also ensuring that they are not using things to cope with difficult times. Like some people, they increase in their cigarette intake, um, or things like drinking, using alcohol to cope. Alcohol can help a little bit. It can look like it is helping. Let me put it that way,
yeah,
because it doesn't really help.
help it
It
doesn't.
will then, cause more problems later. So instead of doing that, you can actually resort into using other measures like exercise. Exercise is actually a good thing because it helps to release hormones like the endorphins, which can help to mop up the stress hormone. So things like that, it helps you to maintain good mental well-being. So the stress hormone is not building up in your system. So those are the ways that, yeah.
Yes, thanks a lot for that, doctor. For pointing out the different ways to manage stress, or is anybody going through a type of stress or the other at this particular point in time. If like we just said, the whole world at the moment, with the crisis in in different parts of the world, bombing happening, and COVID that's just been gradually lifted and lifting out of our society now. So there is stress in different ways. So we should all try and know and understand ourselves and try and walk through it. And remember, there is always a trusted friend, a trusted family or community that can help you or help us in those times. So, on this note, before we bring the podcast to an end, I just want to ask Dr. Toyin if she's got one thing or the other to add to this podcast, and maybe talk about her services, how we can get in touch with her.
Okay, thank you for that, Lady Shola. So I would just like to add, because I'm actually very passionate about workplace health and well-being, and this has been so for the past 20 years. I work with organizations, I work with workers, and these are real issues, dealing with issues that people are going through, maybe in their personal lives or at work. So I just want to quickly touch on work-related stress, which is also mounting up, has been, mounting up in the past many years now. That, peradventure you are a worker and you're thinking that you're stressed at work, maybe there's too much, pressure at work due to your workload, that is you're finding it really difficult to, meet deadlines. Maybe there's staffing issues where you feel that you're doing three people's job in one. You're not able to sleep. You can't switch your mind off when you get home, or maybe there are too many changes happening at the same time at work, and you're not being involved in those changes, or they're just coming all of a sudden. I just want you to know that there is help, because many organizations are actually waking up to mental well-being within the organization. So don't suffer in silence. Ask to speak with your line manager and let them know, because at times people are afraid that I don't want to lose my job. So they continue to struggle on. But what I have found is that people eventually lose the job that they're trying to protect, because if they are not performing at work, then it becomes an issue. So don't be silent at work as well. Let your manager know. And there are strategies that can be put in place. There are, things that can be done, like work-related stress risk assessment with the 6 management standards that were highlighted by the health and safety executives, which can be really useful for organizations to use to assess the issue and then put measures in place for your health and well-being. Now, sleep is also very important. People should ensure that they're getting good sleep, practicing good sleep hygiene and things like that also help with releasing stress and building up your good mental well-being. And this is what I've got to say. My business is called Emerald Organizational Health and Wellbeing Solutions. Is is an organizational business. I provide services to organizations, doing trainings and providing hands-on services, assessing the health and well-being of the workforce. So that is what I do. Thank you for the
Thanks a
opportunity.
lot. You're welcome. We are really blessed to have you on our platform, and thanks for all the knowledge as well. And I'm hoping that we all take this to mind and use it to better ourselves, to ensure our mental well-being, and to make sure that we are living well, and not never think of ending our life, because our life is worth living and worth living well. Because where there is hope, as they say, there is life. And everything we go through, one way or the other, is a stepping stone to getting to our final destination. If only we don't give up and we believe. So, on that note, before we come to an end, I'll remind you that Smiling Faces 21, like I said in one of our previous episodes, is planning to hold a workshop, like a course and workshop, which is you can is not ready yet, but you can find its details on smilingfaces21secrets.com. Smilingfaces21secrets.com. So to end this podcast, I'll say, like we see on this platform, keep smiling, keep laughing, and know that there is always a way out of any mess. A good way, I must say. So God bless you and ciao.